What's going on, guys, and happy Monday. Alioth drops tonight. The new Nightmare in Marvel Snap is coming to the game. We're going to talk about the best cards, combos, and most importantly, counters, and if you should open your Spotlight caches. We're also going to be talking about Loki. By now, you love him or you hate him, and today we're going to talk about the best way to counter the new Season Pass card. And on that topic of hating cards, we're going to talk about our most hated cards in the month of September for Marvel Snap. We're going to break all that down and more in today's episode of the Snapchat. And as always, I'm joined by Mr. Alex Kocha. My God, it's Loki season. He has arrived. The iconic god, the trickster, has made his way into Marvel Snap. How you doing, man? And how you feeling in the first week of the season?
I'm doing great, Cozy, and it's been a wild ride this week, an absolutely wild ride. It's been one of those weeks where, like, you thought you knew what you were in for, and then you get your hands on Loki, and, like, the season just completely changes, and the way the game is played, and the meta is just thrown upside down altogether. I mean, for me, I love this. I love when we have major meta shakeups, and we are living amongst one of the most turbulent metas that we've seen in a while, Cozy, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, you know what? I would love to go back and listen to our takes on Loki, because I know we both thought he would be competitive. Actually, we both thought he was going to be good, but more fun than good. And it's funny, just if there's ever energy reduction to a card, moving forward, we need to just not even really give a lot of takes other than it's going to be cracked. However, we don't have all the pieces together because Mobius is obviously going to change that, and we're going to be talking about Loki and all that here in just a moment. But other than that, we have a brand new season. The Infinite leaderboards are out, which I thought they've been fun, but they're also crazy, and how just losing a game can just throw you down. What do you think of that?
I think it's pretty cool. I think that giving ladder a little bit more meaning for people that want to engage with ladder in that way is important. I kind of came to the realization, as much as I love Conquest, like the length of time and the way that it's played might not be for everybody, right? Yeah. Because, I mean, Marvel Snap was supposed to be a 3 to 5 minute game that you sit down and play, and Conquest obviously laughs in the face of that principal concept, right? So maybe it's not for everyone. So I like them breathing some new life into ladder. Although, like, for me, like, I'm never going to grind to number one. I just won't be there, right? But at the same time, I like the idea of having a ranked-based system to make the matches matter again, to make the snapping matter again. Because, listen, I like playing competitively, and when I just want to play a singular game, then I still want that game to matter. So I think ladder is now achieving that once again, which I think is really important.
We've got ourselves a monster week because we have a nightmare of a card coming out in Alioth. We're going to break down that here in a moment. A good spotlight week, but Alex, what are we talking about on your side of the channel?
Cozy, we're going to be talking about a bunch of fun topics today, including our top 10 favorite cards in September thus far. I mean, these aren't necessarily the best cards, just our favorite cards that we're enjoying the most right now in Marvel Snap. We're also going to have an important conversation, a conversation as to whether or not Loki is legitimately overpowered. I'm actually really interested in your take on that, Cozy. And then finally, we'll be discussing some developer question and answers. We'll be going through some of the Q&As that have been going through on the developer Discord and giving our takes on them as some feedback and as some discussion.
Oh, man. So, listen, no matter what we say on this episode today, whether you're listening or watching, we're going to piss people off. I think Loki is one of those divisive cards in the sense of enjoyment factor and things around it, right? However, we're going to speak the truth on, at least our truth, and behind kind of what our thoughts are on Loki. So we're going to break down, is he OP busted on your side? But we're going to break down the card a little bit entering Snap, our initial kind of thoughts, feelings around the card. I want to start with this. I wanted to talk a lot about Loki, but I will say I have never seen a card come into the game and immediately boost up another card to such significant levels. Can you remember any card that has, like, I can't even say quadrupled in value? The collector has gone absolutely insane.
Yeah, nothing has ever done this to a singular card before. Like, you're right. And, like, by proximity, right? Like, Loki has made the collector one of the best cards in the game. I mean, you could make the argument for Silk and Kraven. Kraven maybe got some love from Silk, but, like, even that's not even close to what's going on with Collector right now. But overall, like, it has been insane what has been happening to Collector, to the point that I'm seeing people calling for Collector nerfs. And remember, this was a card that had to get buffed because it was seeing literally no play.
And that's the thing. I can't wait to talk about, like, what do they do if they do anything at all to Loki. And, like, maybe Kitty and Angela was a good kind of pairing that went together. I like that they're a pairing. What's tough about Collector, and it's the same as Angela, is that they get their power late and they don't have ongoing, right? So it's this weird, how do you counter it? It's really only Shadow King, which we'll get to in a moment, to be like the most reliable counter. But yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves just a bit. Let's talk Loki. So First of all, man, just as a card, just him in general. I mean, never mind if he was amazing or bad. I told you this when he came out. This card was designed for the way that I like to play Marvel Snap. I think we talked about it last week. It reminds me of Rocks and Hawks. It reminds me of like just making every single game fresh, exciting, a little bit chaotic. And that is why at its core value, like I love Loki as a card. And it reminds me, right now, this whole season, the beginning of this reminds me of when High Evo came out. It's almost like, it's very similar in my eyes.
I mean, you're right. It's taking me back in time as well, but to a different spot. I remember when we first had conversations about Conquest. And Cozy, I remember you being so high on Agent Coulson. And everyone else was like, oh, Agent Coulson sucks. And Cozy was like, no, I'm a believer of Agent Coulson. Agent Coulson is going to be a great card for Conquest. And it's this exact effect, right? This idea of having this flashy, kind of interesting take on deck building and deck design that I think Loki and Agent Coulson work together so well for. Yeah. So it doesn't surprise me that you like Loki, because I think it does fit your playstyle perfectly. And it just so happens to be an absolutely incredible effect as well.
Before I realized he was like going off like crazy, immediately, it was like 5 games. I was like, this is my favorite card. Like I was just enjoying the way that it works so well. And probably one of the biggest reasons why, and we'll get to this a bit more, but like, dude, I just love that we don't have the same, you know where Loki fits best, guys, if you want to know, is in a Stature Black Bolt deck with Shang-Chi and Zabu. It just like, it is different. It's definitely different. The mid-ranginess is kind of gone from that a little bit. And the countering, which we're about to allude to, is the most insane countering that we have seen for one specific card. Now, with Loki overall, are you giving him a 5 out of 5 star? We're not going to kind of spoil too much, but is your consensus that he's good? Get him if you play Snap?
Yeah, 100%. For me, it's a 5-star, and not simply because of like his perceived power level, because he's obviously strong, but it's a 5-star just because it's the kind of season pass card I think we want. Even if he needs to be toned slightly or whatever it is, we'll discuss later. I do think that as a season pass card, like it's just so much fun. I think it captures the flavor and the lore of the characters so well. I just think it's a great card. It's just a perfect Marvel Snap card, and that's why I love it.
See, and that's the thing. The things I'm excited to talk about on that subject are going to be, number one, what do they do to him? If they do anything, what do they do? Because I do have some ideas. And number two, in general, I don't think this says, but I like when a card releases, especially a season pass card. It's not that it's like it needs to release busted or whatever, like, but I'd rather them err on the side of good than bad. You know what I mean? I'd rather them. Now, they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. It was funny. I tweeted just like my basic thoughts, and it ended up getting a lot of traction, and I didn't really mean for it. In fact, so much traction, I'm going to shout him out. Glenn is going to be coming on a future Snapchat to talk some balancing. We had some good chats. I've been trying to lock down Glenn for a while. So, Glenn, if you're listening, I'm pumped that you're going to come on because just have a lot of respect for what you do for the game. But I'm like, I would hate to be a game designer, right? Because if season pass card good, riots. Season pass card bad, riots. They have to nerf season pass card, you guessed it, riots. And so it's like a lose-lose in a lot of ways, in my opinion. So anyway, Loki really good. If you haven't seen it already, the decks that I would play, we're going to have them here on screen. You can check out videos on mine and Alex's channel. But really, it's just having that Quinjet collector feel with a kind of low kitty is what I've been calling it. Low kitty. It's tough to say the pun. But you're just stacking on already good synergy. Alex, I do have a big question for you. Do you play Shang-Chi in your Loki deck?
No, I haven't been.
Isn't it risky? It's scary.
It is kind of, but listen, I've been playing almost no counters. Like if I'm playing Loki against other Lokis, I just try and go more vertical. And it's just like, do they have collector on the board? Do they do collector Angela, or do they get like Angela Kitty? Like what's the play pattern, and do I have an advantage? But realistically, like I'm playing almost no tech right now if I'm playing a Loki deck. If I'm not playing a Loki deck and I'm countering Loki, as we're going to be discussing shortly, I got a whole lot of tech, Cozy, and I can't wait to tell you about it.
What Loki deck are you playing if you play one?
I have one called Loki Location Club. I like it because it has like Legion in it. I think it's a really good list. It just throws a lot of curveballs at your opponent, but also has like the hand generation of Snow Guard and Mirage and whatnot. So I've been playing like basically just a hand-sized Loki deck with a little bit of Legion in there to splash some chaos.
I love it, man. Well, either way, this was easily the fastest that I hit Infinite. No question. I actually didn't have a lot of bots. Surprisingly enough, I think I had 1 or 2 bots on my first bit of the climb, and you know it even more with Loki because you're getting like, you know, Okoye, whatever. Come on now. However, As I kind of went on from there, it was nice. It was actually refreshing. I had a bunch of different actual players for once, which was a good thing to see. And then when you're in Infinite now, obviously you don't have any bots. Let's go and talk counters, though. I think we could talk a lot about Loki. He's good. People know it. Let's talk counters, because people feel like Loki is uncounterable. And that's mainly because all the old bags and tricks don't really work. Let's have you kick it off. What is a deck that you love against Loki specifically?
Oh, specifically, it has to be C3 right now. Like, Cerebro 3 is just absolutely hilarious. I think that's the one that comes right to mind, because if Loki plays himself, he's a 5 and he destroys the combo right off the bat. Like, Cerebro's effectively useless because he's on the board, right? And then, you have your ability to kind of reach and elevate above it. It has a ton of fantastic tech pieces, including Shadow King, Valkyrie, and others to deal with the Collector. Yeah, it's Shadow King. Honestly, you have it on the screen right now. Shadow King is an absolute god tier card in C3. If not, it's carrying it straight up. Shadow King's carrying it. So for me, C3 is the number one go-to if you want to absolutely spank a Loki player.
Yeah, so C3 is definitely one of the better ones for sure. I got a list of them today. And for me, it's not even just C3, Cerebro 3, for those that don't, are not up with the cool hip lingo of Marvel Snap. It is just Shadow King. Shadow King is the most direct answer to the Collector. And so it's like, what decks are going to work with Shadow King in it? And so for me, it is Cerebro 3. There is a splash of Sarah Control that is aimed towards more of the Shadow King flavor. That feels pretty good. Heck, even a Shadow King Surfer can do pretty good too, because they would need all of the right combo pieces from that Loki hand to make it work. And so that is where I see probably the biggest benefit, is playing decks that have Shadow King, but it's not like Shadow King is a tech card like Shang-Chi is, where you can just plug them into like a Shuri deck. You know what I mean? You have to give them a little boost behind them, and those 3 decks are going to do just that. So I do like Shadow King. You should go as Shadow King for Halloween. I feel like the hat, you might be able to rock it. You would have to shave your head if that's okay.
I think I look better as like the actual beastie thing behind him.
I'm
still
Shadow
not sure
King.
what it is. I saw the episode of X-Men where Shadow King's there, and he's like arguing with Storm about her son or something, and I couldn't understand who Shadow King was.
That's the Shadow, and he's the king.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah, so I'll be king if you want to be Shadow. It'd be going great. I'm telling you, man. We're heading into fall. Are you a fall guy? What is your month, actually, your season, if you were to pick one?
I mean, I do like winter to some degree. I like when there's snow on the ground. I like driving in snow because it's like really quiet and you kind of feel like your car's floating a bit. There's no bees in the winter, which is nice. I cannot stand bees. Not like bumblebees. I like bumblebees, but like we have like yellow jackets and hornets and stuff that'll just like attack your face for no reason. So like, I don't have to worry about that in the winter. So I think winter is mainly because of the bees and mosquitoes and stuff.
That was the most Alex Kocha response to that question ever, and you lived up to the. I mean, I was surprised you didn't slip in Costco in there at least like twice. Like, Costco, the discounts there in the winter are just top of game. But I like it. I would say the best holidays are in the fall. I love Halloween, love football season, love just like. San Diego is amazing, but the worst part about it is you look outside every day and it's 70 and gorgeous, and you're just like, I'm fat and I suck if I don't go outside. And guess what? My job is not going outside. It's doing YouTube content. So I always feel bad. In the fall, though, it's like slightly not as good. It's still pretty good. But anyway, Shadow King, great card. Good card right now. Crazy to say that. It is what it is. I think he could be even better stat-wise in some degree, like to match up kind of that other spot that Shang-Chi and Enchantress do. But 3/3 makes a lot of sense. I can't believe I'm saying it, Alex. I can't. And it's so shocking to think it. But to think that Hela right now, Hela Tribunal, this is the madness that I'm talking about. I don't know about you, but playing Loki, this was the deck that I lost to the most. Because you know what Loki's doing to these players? It's giving like blind confidence. Because it's a good deck. Like, you have your pieces, you get Quinjet down, Collector. You're like, I don't care if they have an Invisible Woman and I don't have Cosmo. I'm snapping because I cannot lose. When this deck gets to do its little thing of the MODOK Hela and it goes wild, bro, it's good. It's good. It's inconsistent, but it's good.
Tribunal's one of those cards that like will absolutely take people by surprise. And the nice thing about it, when they swap in, Like they get these cards they probably can't really play properly. Like what do you do with Modok without Hela? And like if you aren't prepared to actually steal a Hela base list, it feels awful as a Loki player. To the point you may as well not play Loki. Maybe fall back on that Devil Dinosaur package you might have snuck into your deck, right? But I do like the call out, and it's kind of we're in a crazy world if Tribunal Hela is actually a legitimate meta contender. I think the win rate's like still kind of middling though, but when it pops, you feel like $1,000,000.
So it's funny on ladder. I'm having a guide coming up. There's a discard pure set of Hela that's doing really good, and Tribunal's doing bad. But in Conquest, stat wise, the stats are good. Now it's not being overly played at the moment, and if like any meta deck, like Hela is doing best because people are just like, I'm not queuing into Hela. There's no way, right? And then they queue into Hela, and then you're kind of stuck, right? And so if it were to get too out of rails, I just thought I would throw it up because it's definitely a fun counter. But you bring up a good point. We talked about Surfer and Hela now. These decks where if you give them 4 to 5 cards, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do with those cards if you don't have the other pieces? And that is where, Alex, I feel like, I don't know about you, but it's cool to see that Shuri in this kind of Vision Slam craziness is performing at a really good level, but it doesn't feel like old Shuri levels of annoying.
Shuri is completely out of control right now, in my opinion. I think it's one of the best decks in the game. I think there's 2 versions of Shuri now. You have the classic Shuri Sauron, which is running like a 64% win rate at some point, I think. Then you have like the Shuri Kitty combination. It's like Shuri Kitty with like Hulkbuster, Forge, to like give you a play pattern where you can actually play your Kitty Pride into Shuri if you wanted to. If it's like built up massively, then you can still Taskmaster Shuri on turn 6, which is Taskmaster Kitty on turn 6, which is crazy. That's running a couple points under, but they're both above 60% right now. So yeah, I think Cozy, you nailed it. I think Shuri's an absolutely insane deck. I think Loki can't really compete with the verticality of it either. Yeah. So I think that it is definitely a good choice right now in the meta.
Yeah, this is probably my favorite choice, then C3, if I were to like throw them out there, and then some crazy combo decks. The thing is, fun fact, that Kitty Shuri deck that you just listed is my most hated deck in Snap at the moment. I cannot. The Taskmaster at the last play drives me bananas. It drives me nuts, man. Especially because like I just slotted Killmonger out of a lot of my decks, and then it's just like, even if you do, you have to like throw turns so that you don't get the priority. It is such a frustrating deck to go up against. So I'm glad you gave that a shout out. It's something I would definitely, I'm going to talk about maybe in some hated segments to get some heat off later on, Alex Kocha. But any other decks at the top of your mind? Again, we've done C3, Sarah Control, and guys, these aren't just like decent decks. They're solid against Loki. They're putting up numbers. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about like any deck that's splashing Mr. Negative in, because when they swap the cards, they don't get the negative effect, right? And then they're going to have some cards that aren't necessarily going to be that useful to them, especially if they're not a negative style list, because Loki will swap based on the initial deck, not the negative based deck. And I think that on that vein, you also have the high evolutionary. Like I like Toxic Evolutionary, so they're going to be picking up a whole bunch of like non-upgraded Evo cards, which I think is valuable. I think Evo as a whole is being kind of underappreciated right now in the meta. Like it used to be like 20% of the meta. It took like a couple minor nerfs, and now it's at like 3-4% range, which is still fine. It's a viable deck, but I think that like from a win rate perspective, from a competitive standpoint, from just like a spread of matchups, I think that high Evo is as good as it's ever been.
It's doing the exact same thing that happened to Shuri when Shuri got nerfed. Like Shuri had these like 3 months where it was just good, but people weren't playing it, and then it was just being good by itself. And Evo is still a very good deck, and it might be one of the best decks to have them swap with, because getting Misty Knights, man, good luck. Have fun with that. Like they don't get your cards, and that is such a huge advantage. A really good callback. This is a minor gripe, and I just need to say this. So High Evo, if you don't have him and you want to play High Evo, he's coming later. He's coming up in a somewhat future spotlight, right? At the end of the month, is it? I think so.
Yeah, he's coming up again.
And did you see that they're repeating the variant?
I saw.
What are your thoughts on that? I don't get hot often. Devs, I know we have some that listen to the show. For me, when something is said, right, and they say we're going to have unique spotlights for all of them, they're unique. And now all of a sudden, like just kind of randomly, that's been changed with no communication prior to that. I don't know. It torqued me.
So basically, there was a developer Q&A about that, because obviously other people in the community noticed, like, hey, like, why is High Evolutionary there? And we're getting like the third null, and Kang's coming back. Like, there's a whole bunch of repeats, which really sucks. Like, that's not what we want. Like, I don't know about you, I didn't even roll a single spotlight cache this week. Like, I'm in a situation right now where like I'm not opening regular caches, I'm not opening spotlight caches, I'm opening nothing. And I'm not getting any new cards unless I'm just rolling for the new card of the week or whatever, right? And it sucks. It feels terrible, like it just to be amassing all these things I'm supposed to be excited about. But what they had said was that essentially they don't have the pipeline set up yet for the spotlight variants, which kind of sucks because it's like that's why you're seeing, like, and no disrespect to Dan Hip, because I actually like the Dan Hip art a lot. There's some of my favorites are Dan Hip's, but at the same time, it's like that's not the value add that a spotlight cache needs to be. The spotlight cache was originally kind of touted to be almost like an ultimate style variant, right? Like one of those, like almost like what you'd get in the token shop for 5,000. And the first couple weeks was like that, right? Like that Kang that we had, the original Null. Those were like banger variants that looked like they would have been near ultimate variants. And now we're just, it seems like they're just filling. And to actually not only repeat the card, but to repeat the variant is insane. And apparently it has all to do with the actual pipeline for the variants themselves.
It's like saying, like, we have a 20-step plan, this company that needs to make up some ground. 20-step plan. And then, like, they get back to their room and like, okay, guys, what's the plan? Like, I'm not saying it's as bad as that, but it feels to me like they came up with a solution with not all of that solution solved yet. And if this was known back at house, number one, don't say it. So, like, number one, just like, please just watch. People are going to hold on to everything that's said by developers. Like, and they know that by now. You guys know that. Just, I don't, why say they're all going to be unique, right? Funny enough, when they first were announced, I didn't expect them to be unique. I was like, that's a lot. Like, Jean Grey, I was like, I'll get her on the next one. But then I realized it was a different Jean Grey, which it was because they had art for Jean Grey prepped. But to me, it just seems like this was built up for a while. I know they put all guns a-ho, like, ahead, trying to get spotlights ready to go to help with this card acquisition problem. But for me, going back on things that have been said, it is a very bad look. It is just variance, but at the end of the day, it is also what the whole economy is around all this stuff, you know? And so anyway, not thrilled about that, man. And that, to me, guys, that was a big miss. And devs, if you're listening, I hope you guys can figure that out. I get that doing the art and the variants and that kind of stuff has stuff that we don't really understand, but at the same time, like, it has to be figured out. And you have to have cards like Howard or Iron Lad come back before you have the third repeat of Null. It just has to happen.
Like, I don't even have Howard the Duck yet because I was expecting it's going to be in the Spotlight Caches event. It's been months now. It's not even shown up, right? And so, like, that feels horrible. And every time I roll, like, one of the random chance, like, what's it called? The 1,000 tokens, which got buffed up, which is nice. I never get a new card. It's always the 1,000 tokens now. So I've not been lucky. I've not gotten any of the new cards that are in the caches.
And that was the thing. If they could have, like, they said that you get like a premium variant if you already have this high Evo. It's like, no, you got to do better than a premium variant. If you guys don't have a solution, that at the very least figure that out, because the compensation there, I don't know why this isn't figured out yet. Premium variants aren't it. They're not the compensation people are looking for. Anyway, we digress a little bit. Thanks for diving into that. I didn't mean to go into some of your section there, but it was on the topic of high Evo.
No, it had to be said.
Yeah.
No, it was the right time to bring it up.
So high Evo, he is a good counter. If you don't have him, he is a good time to get this card. Funny enough, I don't even play this particular variant, although I do like it, and I'm a big Max Greg fan. Now, with these counters, right, we've said Sherry, we've said some of these others. The one that I'll end on here to go to the next subject, for me personally, is the tried and true. Now, we've talked about it, but it's not the boosted Patriot, because God forbid you give him some broods and they go wild. Hey, buddy. Patriot Ultron. I'm telling you, I feel like Classic Patriot is doing a very good job right now. I played a good amount of it already this season in Into Infinite, and I'm loving it. And it's cool because whatever we said, Ultron's best when, you know, he's kind of flying low. Have you given him another shot lately?
Ultron sucks and is an F tier card.
Exactly. Don't play him. Don't play Ultron. But if you if you don't like Loki, good counters. We're gonna have to see what happens to Loki. We have a lot more discussion on your side about just the state of him altogether. But a very good card. If you play Marvel Snap, get Loki. With the notion of him probably being adjusted. I will give you guys that on this side so you hear it. That's my expectation. But how much, we'll find out. Next up, let's get to Alioth. Now, Alioth is coming to the game. This is probably what a lot of people clicked onto the video for. It's on the thumbnail, baby. Alioth, the new nightmare, right? We've got a brand new 6-cost coming to the game. Always exciting when we get a new 6-cost to Snap. And as you guys know, if you don't by now, he is a 6-cost 5-power card on reveal. Destroy everything. All enemy cards played here this turn. This includes unrevealed card. So we are going to break down everything we think about this card in just a moment, but he is coming to spotlights, and the other ones that we do have in those spotlights is Hitmonkey, and we've got Snow Guard. And we don't have to talk much on this, but because of the craziness that is Snow Guard, this has instantly became a pretty damn good week.
Yeah, actually it is. Like Snow Guard, okay, I have Snow Guard and it's fun to play. It works remarkably well in Loki. But I tested even without Loki, right? And Snow Guard feels good because like just like what Legion showed us, any type of location control can be truly powerful. The idea of like kind of procking certain locations can be really cool. Deactivating locations, knocking out limbos that She-Nots absolutely hate, right? It's a good card. It's just a good card. And these, I don't know, I like it a lot. And the art is so good. And like the way it glimmers on the board, like everything about Snow Guard is so good. I'm glad more people are going to be getting their hands on it, which of course is going to make the Loki deck stronger, by the way.
I kid you not. First of all, if you got Loki, you need to get Snow Guard. Like if you enjoy playing Loki, regardless if it gets nerfed, it does not matter. Snow Guard is a fantastic option. Going on turn 4, playing her, then Loki. Going into 5, there's so many good things you could do there. Listen, I'm just going to say it, man. Your first subject, top 10 favorite cards, Snow Guard has earned that spot. Because to me, you get the flavor that you want out of, let's say, something like Legion in such a smaller commitment. And people, dude, I won a huge stakes game where they were going to play Apocalypse on Sinister London. I shut it down. They were just like, what just happened? What? Like, that was my entire game plan to win. What a great redesign. And color me surprised, because we mentioned this a few weeks ago that we expected potentially that they were not going to let Snow Guard be as bad as she was released into that spotlight. And bada bing, bada boom, Hitmonkey now is the worst card technically, and he's still pretty good. And so if you do like Alioth, this is one you can feel confident in. This is a spotlight variant that there's no question I'm getting. I have to get the Alioth, like, reminds me of like Hercules from Disney, like one of the Titans, man. It's an amazing variant. And altogether, I like the week, man. I do like the week for spotlights, especially because the other cards coming out, they're purchasable at like what, 3,000 because they're Series 4.
I gotta tell you, Alliance Spotlight is definitely one that I'm looking to get into, and not just because Snow Guard and Hitmonkey are kind of like really good cards on their own. Hitmonkey's kind of fallen off a little bit because of what happened with Balance, but let's take a second to actually talk about Alioth for a moment, because I don't know about you, Cozy, this has been incredibly difficult for me to kind of identify the actual applicable strength, because it looks like it can be completely earth-shattering. And as a 5 cost, it would have been without question. And now we get into something interesting, and I want your take on this. This might sound dumb, but when I see cards being released and they get changed and modified, I think about the hand of the developer. I think about like Glenn sitting there testing the card and being like, at 5 cost, this card's broken. Like, that is what I think. And then, okay, they move it to 6 power. That means the effect must be powerful. As a 5 cost, it must have broke the game to the point where they knew they had to move it to 6 cost preemptively before the release of it. So we know the effect is going to be good. But at 6 cost, the combo-centric play completely changes. The landscape of the play changes completely. So at 6, I'm having a harder time identifying whether or not this is going to be as meta-shattering as it could potentially have been.
Yeah, so a few takeaways. Number one, I'll talk about my thoughts on Alioth. I'm glad you highlighted that, because I talked about that in my recent October video. We almost never see adjustments, very rarely to data mines that are coming up very soon. And then we definitely don't in the cost department. Now, we've seen it a couple of times, and when we've seen that card needed it, right? So I'm going to give a great example, and I love that you point this out. High Evo, I'll never forget, he was a 4-6, I believe, on data mine, and he went down to a 4-4, and people were so pissed off. Clearly, High Evo was stupid good, and they can see that on their end, and they toned it down. Now, the thing is, we haven't seen the adjustment in the cost department. So no question, what does that tell me? The devs loved Alioth. They thought he was obviously too good at 5, too many combos. And to be fair, the jump to 5 to 6 is massive than going from 6 power to 4 power. I mean, that is like all the combos in the world have changed because of that. So you do make a great point there, and I love that you highlighted that. How good will he be at a 6 cost card? Now, I said it last week. I thought this was the most hyped card up that I wasn't completely sold on. And I think he'll be worse at first as we get adjusted to him. I think that if he fits your playstyle, and there's a few decks that he works really well in, he's going to be a great complement. And man, I'm going to love this card whenever you can just kind of put him into a lot of plug and play decks a couple months down the road. Alioth exists in the world. I think that's really cool for Snap.
I think it's fair to say that, like, I just don't know is a good answer with this card right now, because it is one that feels like you really do have to play it, and the text and the power and just trying to like conceptualize what it's going to do is hard without actually experimenting with the card itself.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, like I was thinking, I've been doing a lot of like theory crafting with a couple cards, and it's funny. I was really hyped up for Alioth originally, less so on Ravona. And then now I'm starting to like tip a little bit more towards Ravona, less on Alioth. But what I will say is I've been playing with this idea of like, okay, what if we wave turn 3? Okay, wave turn 3 into Doctor Doom turn 4. Okay, hear me out. I know this is a little convoluted. Turn 5 is Jean Grey, or like with like a Jeff or a Silk, right? So a really high power movable 2-drop with Jean Grey, and then you Alioth onto that Jean Grey location, and you're able to generate power wide across the board. Like in my head, I'm like, that seems like a play line that, like, yes, okay, you're talking about Alex, you just drew into like 6 cards of your 12 card deck, I know, right?
Yeah.
But like, what do the play lines look like for Alioth without using the cheeky Zola type stuff? And I think that there's lines with Jean Grey that could be legitimately powerful. But if Kitty Pryde still as popular as she is, that dodges Jean Grey very effectively. That was the whole problem with Jean Grey at launch. So like Alioth, I think it's going to be really reliant on its support cast. I don't think it's just a card that it just does its thing. I think it needs the support of like Galactus on 5. And then, oh hell yeah, Alioth is the perfect card to follow up.
Yeah.
I've been trying to figure out those lines, Cozy.
So this is what it is. First of all, he has like he's the best tech ability in the game. Just kill everything if you have priority. The thing about it is, and you kind of alluded to it with Jean Grey, and I have this in my notes, and we're going to break all this down. He is just a good card as what it is. There's 2 key factors. He needs a support cast, but the other thing is just bottom line, and you guys are going to see this up and down. He is a very meta-dependent card because of his tech ability. So, like, in these widespread, for instance, okay, if Alioth came out when Boosted Patriot was at the top of its reign with Absorbing Man, Big Whoop Man, you already have so much power on the board. There's already so much out there before Alioth can truly do what he needed to do there. And then it's tough because they don't have a lot of power to make up what you just did. And maybe you do a Surfer to cap it off. And then, like, you don't need Surfer to live, right? So in these widespread decks that can kind of reach all over, it's tough. It's actually tough, I think, to counter Alioth. And we're going to see this more in the future. So it's interesting. You know what I mean? It's going to be very interesting how he plays with the metagame. But talking about supporting cards, let's go ahead and talk about decks. Let's talk about cards that he's going to work best in. You nailed it. Lockdown City, baby. I think Lockdown is going to be, without question, his best home. And you said the Jean Grey playline, 100%, man. Playing Wave into Jean Grey, what are you going to do? You literally destroy what they play. There's nothing else that can be played. At worst, it's a Doctor Doom. They get a couple cards to the left or whatever it is, but for the most part, you're looking pretty good. Professor X, the idea to me of playing like Electro, okay, and then you play Professor X on 5. Now, you probably have a good shot to cheat this win. And what's great about it, Marvel Snap, you retreat. If it's Conquest, you didn't get the cheat. Just take the cube loss. You maybe lost 1 or 2 cubes, right? You do have to be pretty good at guessing and snapping to get the most effect here. But at that point, you play Professor X. Then what do you do, Alex? Well, it's easy, man. You just Alioth on one of the lanes that you think you're going to win. And then what do you do after that? You simply play Odin or Absorbing Man at that point. Absorbing Man here has a lot of value just because of the effect. You just double down. You do 2 turns in a row of saying you don't get to play here, and you're effectively locking down 2 different locations. Now, with that strategy, you're giving up the priority, which kind of makes it a little bit fair in some cases. But that's where I see him shining the most.
I love the call out of using Prof X because in one of the initial designs that I've been trying to figure out is like if you run something like a Nebula, for instance, right? Something that generates value under Professor X without you having to commit any energy to it, counter to what like a Sunspot does. You're right. If you cheated out on turn 4 because of the electro-based effect, it's much more likely that you can favorably trade. Like even if you have to guess a location, they're not wide enough, they're not vertical enough, right? So, and at that point, if you're able to get Electro on 3, you're at an advantage with that Prof X. And you might, if you're playing Prof X Electro, you probably have Jeff in the deck too as a follow-up, right? And then it reminds me of a leader to some degree, where like that original leader, right? It kind of has that like, yeah, you can just straight up Alioth and then Odin. They can't do anything. Like the play pattern's perfectly powerful.
Leader and Arrow are the two cards that this Alioth reminds me the most of. And it's so bonkers to even think of my wife used to pull the cards over there. Like it's just crazy what she used to be able to do, and then it changed to last. But both of those effects, they would punish decks that were trying to go crazy on that last turn. And you're right, it is. It's just kind of like if you've prepped yourself for the game to get there. And I think people that are good at snapping and identifying and going in when they need to and leaving when they don't, those are going to be the ones that reap the most rewards from Alioth. And overall, I think he's actually extremely healthy for Marvel Snap. And that's why I think Glenn made him too. Like, honestly, I think that's why Glenn had him in there. Even Loki decks to an extent, right? Because Loki loves to flood a bunch of stuff out there. Some Lokis like being greedy and waiting till turn 5. Well, guess what, man? You at least can lock down one lane, if not a couple. And obviously a counter we didn't talk about is, shutting down lanes against Loki can make it pretty tough. However, Alioth, give me one other synergy that you like with him before we move into counters.
I don't know if I know you want like a really spicy synergy here, but I've been trying to pen and paper a Zola combination. I don't know if it's as good as I think it is.
I like Odin
because
better.
Of the 5 power it has. Like if you're able to kind of Electro Alioth into Zola, right? And like if you give up that location, you have to make sure that you have the other 2 up enough for the Alioth effect and his 5 power to trade favorably on turn 6. And like depending on what the meta is at that point in time, I think people can zoo enough early, especially in Conquest if they know what's up, that it might not be as powerful as you'd expect it to be. But I do think there's going to be a winning deck that has Zola and Alioth in it together. I just haven't quite figured it out yet.
So when he was a 5 cost, this is where I was just like, okay, this is why it was broken.
Yeah,
being able to get him out there and doing the Alioth into Arnim Zola into Odin and have Arnim Zola scan Odin and send him back to those 2 Alioth lanes. To me, that was a play line that can't be done right now, really, right? You can maybe do that with Wave and some things. That's a play line that's nuts because you're adding 13 power and then you're adding the double killing everything. Like, to me, that's where it's like, okay, good luck with that. If you can find a way to do that, or if, you can roll the dice a little bit with like Jubilee or maybe an Iron Lad that gets the effect, and then you can kind of get that spicy combo going. Let's talk about where, because I think a lot of people are instantly like, holy crap, Galactus. Like, what is going to happen here? But we kind of talked about this last week. I feel like he's Spider-Man. He's going to win. If you got the Galactus off, like, just get the hell out, guys. If you see Galactus, get out. Take the 2 cubes L. Just take it, They got you on that one, right? I think he's like Professor X Alioth, but just like more in your face.
If you really think about it, the change to Spider-Man makes perfect sense. I think in the developer notes with the change to Spider-Man, they said that Spider-Man's design was restricting future cards, and they were probably referring to Alioth because the effects are very similar, denying that turn 6 or follow-up on Galactus, right? But we're back. We're doing it again, right? And Alioth does that exact same thing. So I wonder if it's going to be another toxic show of force for Galactus, although Galactus is in a completely different spot than it was prior. So Galactus has been changed, Spider-Man's been changed, but Alioth is being reintroduced as a potential major follow-up to Galactus. We'll have to see how the meta kind of figures it out, because right now you're looking at the Galactus decks being pretty good at about a 54-55% win rate.
When it comes to counters, a lot of the same counters for Galactus is the same with Alioth, right? We're going to have these counters that kind of work for both of these cards in some sense. Let's say the obvious ones, the Cosmos. This is going to bring Cosmo back into the meta a little bit. The Armors, clearly, which is already out there. So Armor is like a obviously pretty big counter to Goliath. He just stops altogether. Honestly, I think Professor X on the Armor lane that they have set up might be your smartest approach as an Alioth player, because then you don't have to worry about that. You try to just win that lane, you Jeff it later. Give me another counter, though, because there's actually a significant amount that people kind of always think of best case scenario with card releases and not like what could happen.
I mean, if we want to talk counters, you can make the argument for Leader. I know this sounds crazy, but if you have initiative, right? Leader is going to take their Alioth and then destroy the unrevealed Alioth on the other side. It's a little cute. It's a little cute, but like, hey, listen, I've been playing more Leader lately because I've been experimenting with like Sandman ramp decks. I don't think it's meta yet. Hey, listen, Doctor Doom got buffed, okay? I'm going back to Sandman ramp. I want to figure it out, and I've been playing Leader in it, right? Leader Odin, Leader Doctor Doom. These are great lines. And so if Leader, where initiative matters most, can take over that Alioth in advance of their Alioth play, well then you just destroy their card, and your Leader and your Alioth just smile happily back.
Well, we just said a lot of these decks are going to struggle with priority that play with Alioth sometimes. And so, yeah, it's a damn good point. I mean, just getting the Alioth is going to really hurt them. However, if they do the play line instead of doing Alioth and Odin, it's like, then you just get Leader and then Odin, and it stacks up a bit. I like that. I will say the two cheekier combos that I think will work. First of all, Jean Grey is going to work with and against Alioth. I think that's healthy. Also, Arrow. I think the way it's going to work is Arrow is going to pull him over, and he's going to kill Arrow. I think they do the, like, if you pull a Black Panther, he does Wakanda Forever on the lane he was pulled to. So you're kind of like having Arrow just do like the, like taking the bullets, you know, like she'll die, but she will protect the Kitty Pryde lane or whatever you're playing in conjunction, or on that turn 5, right? Now, I do see, sadly, we kind of skipped over it a little bit. He's your man. He's your guy. Kang in combination, which this is the lore. I mean, this is the lore here. It makes sense. I see Kang being put into a ton of these Alioth decks because you want to know before you play that Alioth, you want to just peek. You want to see, do they have what it takes? Or even more so, do I even want to use them here? And then you have them like, then they're fearful and then they leave. Or they're fearful and then they don't do the play. And then you don't even have to play Alioth. I think Kang, that is where that synergy comes from that I'm in love with.
I totally get what you're saying, right? Hey, listen, anytime you want to talk Kang, you're in the right spot, right?
Yep.
That is interesting because it's the mind games element of it, right? You get that Kang snap in there, you get to see where their play is going. You know you have Alioth in your back pocket. And usually, I think, based on the play patterns we've been describing, you kind of know where you want to attack with Alioth.
Yep.
Because you're going to have a lane that's locked down. You're going to have a lane that you know you've tried to win. Because I think that's the core design of a lot of the decks. So if you have that, it's just a matter of saying, okay, where am I going to win next?
Yep.
Because you only need 2 lanes in Marvel Snap. A lot of people forget that. We tend to attack all these triple lanes all the time. But I think with Alioth, it's going to be really important to focus in on the 2, which I think is what Shuri playstyles really are good at too, right? Yep. Those Shuri, those Taskmaster Red Skull plays, you're attacking 2 locations. You're not attacking 3. And so I really like the idea of Alioth, having some of that information to make sure that they can attack an appropriate location.
What I think is so exciting about this card, just bar none, is if you look at some of the releases, and honestly, this is the theme of the month. From Loki to Alioth to Ravonna and to Mobius, they are cards that can be put into decks. They are plug and playable. These cards are truly plug and playable cards, and I think Alioth is exciting for that reason. Like I say, put him in a ramp deck, put him in a destroy deck, right? Like these are the things I'm suggesting, but also like in the decks that you just enjoy playing, throw him in there because I think he is going to be a decent tech card for a lot of reasons. And again, it is going to depend on the meta game. Overall, though, I like Alioth. I think it's going to be an interesting week. I'll definitely be testing him and then giving my kind of night 1 analysis. These damn card releases are so late. But I had to get a little bit of an honorable mention here. Goose, man. We got to talk about Goose because Goose is one of those cards that it's tough because the Zabu, the things that get annoying against Goose because you're trying to shut something down. As a pure Alioth counter, I love Goose. I'm a little fearful because of the Loki. And I'm also fearful, by the way, of Loki decks taking Alioth and having him for 4 or 5, and then it's just even worse of a nightmare. But I do think Goose will serve a purpose here.
Yeah, Goose is in a tricky spot and has been for a long time. Like, Goose was a staple in Silver Surfer decks and pretty much any deck that wanted to keep Galactus out, too. It was a great Galactus counter for that exact reason, right? But you're right, like Loki decks slide under it. I think we're going to see a reduction in Zabu base lists. I think Zabu might be starting to fall off in popularity slightly, especially with Triple N potentially coming out. Well, we know it's coming out, right? So I do think that like Goose might have a leg to stand on, especially if Alioth becomes really problematic. And realistically, still as a 2 cost, it's relatively stress-free to include a Goose in your deck if you've designed your deck around the concept of having a Goose in there. Like, it doesn't, like, if you're playing Silver Surfer and you have Goose and matchups where you're against Loki, yeah, it feels bad, but still it's not the end of the world, right? It doesn't completely ruin you. I like to call it on Goose.
So, Alex, just gonna leave it here. Gut tells you from F tier all the way up to S tier. Just gut before playing. What do you think?
Can I give you stars? Can we do stars?
Sure.
I would say that this has the potential to be a 4-star card, but I lean toward it probably being a 3-star card.
Okay. Yeah, I think the meta does depend. I think 3.5 to 4 stars is where I have it. 4-star if the meta is favorable, and then 3.5, 3 if not. 3, you're going to lose games because you played an Alioth wrong, and you're going to win games that you shouldn't have because you played him right. And that's what makes a good card. Remember, he's not going to be over the top busted. I don't think he'd be released that way, and they've already addressed that. So Alioth comes out tonight, man. Looking forward to that and just making videos with what I think is going to be a pretty damn fun card and a couple spicy decks that I have up my sleeve for testing. Now, finally, we do this every now and then. It's time to release some hate. It's time to let it go a little bit. And I love doing this now on a monthly basis. The most hated cards in Marvel Snap for us. And this is right now in September. What do we hate playing against? And funny enough, this can also go with cards you like, but you hate playing against them. I know last season I said a couple that I actually enjoy playing, but my God, just because Arrow was my wife, playing against her was a nightmare back in the heyday, right? Like, that's just how it works. Alex Kocha. Let's kick it off with number 5. Your most hated card right now, number 5 is what?
Man, I don't want to hate this card, but I kind of feel like I do. Can I hate Iron Lad? Is that bad?
I had a feeling you put. I had a feeling you were gonna put Lad on the list.
It's just, listen, I think it's the RNG. Like, anytime I play Lad, he's pulling rocks and absolute filth, like just complete garbage every time. And like, oh, my opponent played Iron Lad. Oh, look, it's Mr. Sinister. Oh, it's Brood. It's exactly what he needed to win this game every single time. And I just want to punch my monitor. I want to smash my phone. It is tilting me out completely. Because it's, it's RNG, but at the same time, like, it's controlled RNG because you know what's in the deck, you know what's left. And man, Iron Lad, listen, I think it's at number 5 because for me, I respect how good this card is, but it pisses me off. When someone else plays Iron Lad against me, it pisses me off. And when I play Iron Lad, guess what, Cozy? It pisses me off.
He almost made my list strictly because they've yet to fix the bug of him not showing what he's doing animation-wise.
The worst.
Like, the fact that I have to sit there and wait for my impending death, right? Like, have you ever... There's been times where I'm sitting there, and I'm like, did I lose? Am I screwed? Oh, no, it's a rock. Right? Like, that alone almost had me put him on the list. I can't stand that, man. It's the worst. So I get it. I get where that comes from. I had a hard time thinking about some of my lists. There's ones that I want to put out there just because I'm going to always hate them, kind of thing. And, again, everybody hates different cards. And actually, I love this. Last time you guys did this as the viewers, comment down below your 5 in order because I love seeing the difference between people and what they hate to play against. I'm going to stand by. I am just... listen, as much as I enjoy the card, there's not a card that I hate seeing more played on turn 2. And I can't even find him, so he's getting me even more heated than Daredevil, man. Daredevil is one of those cards that when he gets played down, he's just so dang frustrating because he throws off any type of surprise I'm trying to do, any type of combo finish. I could put him higher. He's one of those. There's a very few cards in the game that when my opponent plays it, I'm just like, damn. Just damn. I'm not excited to see the later games. And I still think he's so dang impactful for so many reasons. He's also why I'm sure Alioth was not released at a 5-cost card. Do you hate Daredevil?
I don't hate Daredevil, but I know the feeling. I know the feeling of, oh, they have Daredevil. That means that, like, my turn 5 play, they know what I'm going to do. My Prof X is useless or my whatever is useless, right? It's crazy what Daredevil can do from a mental standpoint. But it does feel like a fair card. Like, it feels like a fair card. You know what it is? I love playing Daredevil, even though hasn't it been cut from a lot of lists? Like, it's not as popular as it used to be.
No, it's not, because honestly, Jeff and just like being able to do Pro X, and that's why it's worse when you see him. Because now you're like, oh, damn, what homebrew Galactus deck am I going up against these days? I have him on there. I can't not hate Daredevil. He's my number 5.
For number 4 for me, this is a card that actually does not see a lot of play, but when it does, it pisses me off so much. Like, this would be higher if it saw more play, and it's pissing me off just thinking about it. It's Black Widow. Getting that Widow's Bite upsets me so much, and listen, I know it's not that popular right now. It's not. But when I get Widowed Bite, I'm just like, how dare you? How dare you do this to me? Like, I just want to retreat. I'm like, I don't even want to play this game anymore. You can have your cubes. Like, I don't want to play this video game anymore. How dare you take a draw away from me? This is only a 12-card deck, you savage. Like, come on now. Like, what are we doing? This card is so tilting. Yeah,
I do get that. I understand. It's funny because if anything, I do think it needs a little bit of a buff on top of that. But my God, the effect-wise, it like... You know what I loved about her is I was trying to put her into my way to Infinite. I was trying to put her into my Loki decks because I was like, all right, if I get this off, they're usually playing Loki late. And I'm like, haha, I stop your Agent Coulson. I stop so many things that they're trying to accomplish. But it also helps the deck too much, man. You're helping out like Collector. You give them another card to Loki if they were going to play it. So it's like, dang, I wanted to be buffed. But yeah, the effect of it, that's probably why they were so careful with her being the rank that she's at, bud. But it's a good number 4 there. Now, I do have something to say that I think a lot of people are going to be surprised about. I have retired him. And if you look back, there's a reason I had him at number 1. I do not have Doc Ock on my list. He is now off. He was my number 1 most hated card. But because of the era that we're in, which, by the way, I think is a good Loki counter, these kind of clog decks, I'm not hating him so much. Also, the decks I'm playing, listen, he's probably number 6 or 7, but I've left him off my list. However, I know, I get it. He's never played, man. He's never played. But when he's played, my God. And mainly, this is recency bias. There's been some conquests. I lost a match 5 in Infinity Conquest, this last one, because of a Kang freaking deck. And I there are times, it's not even if I could win. I can win the match, and I'm still just angry playing this card, playing the exact same play I just did for them to do the same. It is so frustrating. It's like a way to stall the game longer in time. Kang is definitely up there for me.
Kang is absolutely a nightmare to play against, and it just grinds the game to a halt. And we've discussed this many times. Like, I do feel like I'm a believer in Kang, but I don't know if I believe in what it does to Marvel Snap. You know, like the side effect of what it does might not be worth it overall.
It's tough because of how Marvel Snap works. I love the animation. It's cool. I love Galactus's animation, but it just slows the pace down, and Kang more so than that, man. That animation is, if anything, a couple seconds too long, man. Just show me some clocks and gears and then just reset that thing all in one action, man. Like the whole zipping the cards, and I can't do it. That's why probably him, the stalling effect, what he does. I don't see him a lot, but I hate him. Number 3, Alex.
Number 3 for me is a card that it's a tried, tested, and true absolute beauty. And you know what? I like playing it too, but I don't like having it played against me. It's Iceman. Iceman continues to be an absolutely infuriating card. Honestly, there's times where this is number 1 because it's going to hit the card that I don't want it to hit every single time. It hits the Electro every time. It hits Sarah every single time. And even if it hits like a Silver Surfer or a Killmonger or whatever in a Surfer deck, it's like, well, great. Now I can't play 3 costs on turn 6 with my Sarah. Like, it's so frustrating what Iceman can do. And anytime the meta becomes combo-centric, Iceman increases in value. But right now, for instance, Iceman does not have as much value because Loki just discounts the crap out of everything anyway. So, I mean, Iceman ebbs and flows, but it is consistently a very irritating card to have played against you.
It's funny. I want to see what happens when Mobius comes out, like what happens to Iceman. But what I'm cracking up at is there's going to be a new type of hell when Iceman hits your Mobius. So, like, you had Mobius to stop this BS from happening, and then now you can't even Mobius to stop a Loki that then they're going to play, right? Like, an Iceman Loki deck, kill me. That's going to be the worst thing to go up against. I don't have him on my list. I hate him way less than I used to. Now that Ham is where he's at, I think he's going to go right back up there. So, like, how do you not? But yeah, that's a good inclusion. All right, so number 3 here is one that, it's funny, I don't know if I actively hate him because he maybe will be on my favorites list as well. And this was tough. He's a favoriter that I hate, right? This is the one on the list here. It's gotta be Legion, man. Legion is, and you know what it might be, is that it's just like, oh, hey, put Legion in every single deck. So he's always the threat to be there. The strength of the card, just his dumb freaking face every time. He's just so frustrating because there's not a card that you can play or had played against you that has a bigger effect, especially in ladder, man. Conquest, you can start to prepare for it a little bit, but man, in ladder, like, I don't care that he's a 5/7. If anything, I thought he was lucky to escape with only 1 power below him. Legion is one of those. I love him. Man, I love Legion. But my God, I also hate him.
You are right. The control of locations is crazy. Like, literally, I had a game where I played Legion on Mojo World, and I knew I was going to play on Mojo World. I was against a Shuri deck, and I just designed it so I'm like, I'm always going to have more cards here. I know what you're playing on turn 6. It's Taskmaster +1, and I know where you're going, and you're not going to account for Mojo World being everywhere. And it was the easiest 8 Qs of my life. So yes, location control is absolutely insane. And I'm actually surprised you hate Legion because I think it's so fun. I think it's so fun to play. But I guess you've been on the receiving end a few times, I take it.
He's on my favorite list, dude. I love him. I love the card. Arrow is my favorite card, but I can still hate the card played against me. Legion is one of those played against me that I'm just like, damn. Just damn, here we go again, you know. But yeah, I had to put him on the list. What is your number 2?
Number 2 will surprise you because this is a card that saw almost no play whatsoever, and it has been during the Loki season that this card has made a comeback. And I'm like, oh yeah, I hate this card. Why is it seeing play again? And it's Cable. Cable is infuriating to play against.
Wow,
Cozy.
we got personal. I love it. Like, I'm shocked.
Listen, they're stealing a card. Even if it doesn't matter what they're stealing of yours. It's like, it's the mind game. It's the heart. It's like, did they just steal my Loki? Did they just steal my blank, whatever I need to win this game? And it's heartbreaking because you never know. It's like a betrayal. It's like the most epic anime betrayal of all time. Every single time Cable comes out and they play your own card against you because you know they have Quinjet on the board. And even if they don't, they just Loki it. And you're like, my card, dead for no reason, just to feed the machine. So
Totally.
upset.
I get it. I do get it. And like, it throws off, like, man, if you play with a tracker too, like, it's just useless at that point. Like, it just completely throws off, like, honestly, like, super sweaty play and like calculating and doing what you do as a really good Marvel Snap player. I get it. Didn't think we live in a world where he's brought up, but I love it. Number 2 for me, man, is going to be the card that was gone forever. He's kind of back now, and mainly it's because like I don't have Shang-Chi on the list, not to spoil it, but like, I don't know. I'm just good with Shang-Chi. I've accepted he's good for the game. He's just kind of there. I just hate Leech with so much passion. And it comes from me being a kind of player that likes Loki or combos, man. I'm a combo guy. I've always been a combo guy. And I'm like giddy about turn 6 at times. I'm like, oh, here we go. This guy doesn't know what's coming, right? And I don't even lose to him that much. I'll be honest. Like, I could do okay with, but God, I hate him. I cannot stand him. I kind of wish he had the effect at the last turn of the game that his effect would go off, not on turn 6. I actually hate him more so sometimes because of that, because now it's 2 turns and it's reversing everything. I hate him. His stupid face, his ability, easy number 2 for me.
You know what? I'm actually surprised he's at number 2 for you, honestly, because I thought he'd have been number 1 for you like he is for me.
I knew it.
Screw Leech.
I knew it.
I can't stand this card. I can't stand this variant. I can't stand his face. I can't stand his eyes. I can't stand the effect. His stupid hand coming across the screen.
His stupid
hat. Can't
hat
stand any of it. Screw this card.
Screw his hat, too. It looks stupid.
Yeah,
it look good on you.
Beanie.
Stupid
and
hat.
he sucks in the X-Men animated series.
He sucks.
Just whiny.
I hate him. God, just terrible little human mutant. Here's the thing, bro. I always feel like my lists are personal. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I could go with like the people's choices. Be like, yeah, Shang-Chi, Cosmo, Enchantress. No, mine are personal. And again, this is a card I think people are going to be shocked. It's right now. It's a gut feeling. Which one I hate. And I led to it. It is that Taskmaster Kitty Pryde list. Kitty Pryde, I'm sick of her, man. I'm sick of her being in every deck. I'm sick. And I play her. I get it. The jump that she does with priority and the way that she works in the game with priority makes me absolutely insane. And that's mainly what it is. I don't mind her strength, any of that. The way she works with priority in this new Hulk bustering your Kitty Pryde into this Taskmaster Angela Captain, it drives me nuts. I hate that deck. And when I go up against it, I just get infuriated. I have her as my number 1 most hated card. She's beautiful. I play her, but I hate her at the moment as my number 1.
You sound mad, bro.
I am mad. I don't have a complaint about her in the meta or anything. Like, I don't hate her, her strength and her power level, and I don't hate you for playing her. I don't. I just hate her. That's where the projected anger's at.
That's not true. You hate us too for playing her.
I hate you, Alex.
You do kind of, yeah.
I hate you for playing her. How dare you?
I'm sorry.
Guys, we talked about the most hated cards today, Loki, and we talked about Alioth, which I'm excited to have our next Snapchat breakdown Alioth. And then next week's card in Ravonna. And there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Mobius is coming to the game as well. Over on Alex's side, we're going to talk about our favorite cards. Flip the script. We're also going to be talking about is Loki OP. And then, of course, the developers Q&A. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed another episode of the Snapchat. Happy fall. Happy football season. Go Patriots. And until the next one, guys, happy snapping.